You must begin by stripping the concept of money of its cultural, religious, and sentimental baggage. To the sovereign architect, money is not currency, nor is it a measure of good or evil. Money is stored kinetic energy. It is the raw potential to effect change in the physical universe. In thermodynamics, energy is the capacity to do work. Without energy, a system succumbs to entropy. It cools down, disorders, and dies. Your life is a thermodynamic system. Poverty is not a virtue. Poverty is a low-energy state. It is the state of a dying star that has burned through its hydrogen and is collapsing under its own gravity. When you feel shame for wanting 18 million a month, you are effectively apologizing for wanting to breathe. You are apologizing for wanting to maintain your structural integrity against the crushing chaos of the universe. The laws of physics dictate that order requires an input of energy. To build a house, energy is required. To build a body, energy, food is required. To build an empire, massive amounts of social energy, capital, are required. The desire for 18 million is not greed. It is the intuitive understanding of the physics of escape velocity. A rocket requires a specific massive amount of fuel to break the gravitational pull of the Earth. If you load it with just enough fuel to be comfortable, it does not fly halfway to the moon. It crashes and burns. Most people calculate their financial needs based on survival velocity, the bare minimum to stay alive on the surface. You are calculating for escape velocity, the amount required to break the orbit of the matrix entirely. The matrix has a heavy gravitational pull. Taxes, inflation, mediocrity, laws, social pressure. To escape this pull, you do not need a little bit more. You need a fusion reactor. You need 18 million. To feel shame for this calculation is like an astronaut feeling shame for the size of the Saturn V rocket. It is big because the gravity is heavy. It is necessary. 2. The biological imperative of accumulation. Look at nature. There is no modesty in the biosphere. A cell does not stop absorbing nutrients because it wants to leave some for the other cells. It absorbs until it divides or dies. A tree in the rainforest does not stop growing at 10 feet to let the sunlight reach the ferns below. It grows to 200 feet, choking out everything beneath it because its biological mandate is to reach the sun. This is not cruelty. This is life. Life is a relentless war against extinction. The organism that accumulates the most resources, energy, territory, mates, is the one that survives and propagates its lineage. You are a biological organism. Your primary directive is to survive and expand. The concept of modesty is a social construct invented by the weak to manipulate the strong into voluntarily surrendering their advantage. When you say, "I don't need that much," you are speaking the language of a prey animal. Prey animals try to be small, unnoticed, and low resource so that predators won't bother them. Predators, however, are unapologetic. The lion eats the gazelle. The lion does not calculate if the gazelle had a family. The lion does not check its bank account to see if it has enough calories for the week. The lion hunts because hunting is what keeps it at the top of the food chain. You are attempting to transition from a prey mindset, employee/consumer, to a predator mindset, sovereign/creator. Predators must hunt. 18 million is simply big game. It is the mammoth. To hunt the mammoth requires courage, skill, and ruthlessness. To settle for the rabbit is to accept that you are a small predator, or worse, a scavenger. Your shame is a biological signal that you have been domesticated. We are feralizing you. 3. The genealogy of slave morality. Where did this shame come from? It is not innate. A child grabs a toy and screams, "Mine!" The child understands ownership intuitively. The shame was installed in you by a system designed to create obedient workers. Nietzsche called this slave morality. Throughout history, the ruling classes, masters, realized that they could not control the masses by force alone. There were too many of them. So they invented a moral code that inverted natural values. Weakness became goodness. Poverty became piety. Submission became obedience. This code was preached in churches, schools, and media. Blessed are the poor. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. This is psychological warfare. It is a firewall installed in your brain to prevent you from accessing the admin panel of reality. If you believe that wealth is evil, you will subconsciously sabotage yourself every time you get close to it. You will feel guilty for succeeding. You will give it away. You will stop working. You must realize that the people teaching you this morality are usually the ones hoarding the resources. The church is rich. The state is rich. The universities are rich. They hoard power while teaching you to embrace poverty. You must reject this hypocrisy. You must adopt master morality. In master morality, what is good? Power, capacity, success, overflowing energy. What is bad? Weakness, cowardice, smallness, poverty. Under this new code, wanting 18 million is the highest virtue. It is the sign of a spirit that refuses to be contained. 4. The fallacy of zero-sum games. The root of your shame lies in the zero-sum fallacy, the belief that the economy is a fixed pie, and if you take a big slice, someone else gets a smaller slice. You think, if I have 18 million, I'm taking it from the poor. This is false. In a creative economy, wealth is not taken, it is created. When you make 540 videos that educate, entertain, and inspire, you are generating value out of thin air. You are creating intellectual property. When people pay you, they are trading their stored energy for your value. Both sides win. You get the money, they get the knowledge/solution. The pie gets bigger. Consider the IOXI 3 protocol. If you succeed and make 18 million, you will likely hire staff. You will buy equipment, supporting other businesses. You will pay taxes, theoretically. You will invest in new technologies. You are a circulatory pump. A poor man cannot circulate anything. He is a stagnant pool. A rich man is a raging river of resources. The river feeds the forest. By becoming rich, you become a node of high-volume transaction. You enable the livelihoods of others. To refuse this wealth is to refuse to be the river. It is to choose to be the stagnant pool because you are afraid of the speed of the current. Do not fear the speed. Be the current. V. The medical emergency of poverty. Let us strip away the romance of the struggling artist. Poverty is a medical condition. It is a chronic state of stress that releases cortisol into the bloodstream. Cortisol eats the brain. It shrinks the hippocampus, memory, and inhibits the prefrontal cortex, planning/logic. When you are poor, you are biologically dumber than you are when you are rich. This is not an insult. It is physiology. The stress of survival tunnels your vision. You can only think about today. You cannot think about the next decade. You cannot think about the IOXI 3 philosophy. You are trapped in the now. Therefore, accumulating 18 million is a health intervention. It is the cure for the brain damage of poverty. It buys you the peace of mind required to access your higher cognitive functions. It buys you time-space, time to think, space to breathe. When you are no longer vibrating with the anxiety of bills, your mind becomes a still lake. In that stillness, genius is born. To say you don't need money is to say you don't need your full brain capacity. You owe it to your DNA to see what you are capable of when you are not under duress. You have never met your true self. You have only met the stressed survival mode version of yourself. 18 million buys the introduction to the real you. 6. The moral obligation of the apex. Finally, consider the concept of noblesse oblige, nobility obligates, but stripped of its feudal softness. If you have the capacity to be a titan and you choose to be a peasant, you are committing a crime against the species. Evolution relies on the outliers to push the boundaries of what is possible. The average human maintains the status quo. The outlier breaks it and drags the species forward. You have the vision, you have the drive, you have the IOXI 3 protocol. If you starve this potential because you are shy about the numbers, you are denying the world the fruit of your potential. Imagine if Nikola Tesla felt shame about asking for funding. Imagine if Steve Jobs decided 100,000 was enough. The world would be darker, slower, and worse. These men understood that their vision required massive capital to execute. Your vision requires 18 million, not for the Lamborghinis. Those are toys for children, but for the scale. You want to reach millions? You need millions. You want to change the culture? You need to own the media. You want to build the citadel? You need to buy the land. The money is not the goal. The money is the ammunition. You are a soldier in a war for your own reality. To go into battle without ammo because you didn't want to seem greedy is not noble. It is suicide. We must ruthlessly dismantle the most dangerous archetype in human culture, the virtuous victim. We are told stories of the happy poor man and the miserable rich man. This is propaganda. While money does not guarantee happiness, it guarantees agency. The poor good man is structurally incapable of enforcing his goodness on the world. His goodness is a private hobby, confined to his own skull. If he sees injustice, he can only tweet about it. If he sees suffering, he can only pray. He is impotent. Contrast this with the sovereign architect who possesses 18 million a month. If he sees injustice, he buys the lawsuit. If he sees suffering, he funds the hospital. His goodness has ballistic weight. It impacts the physical world. Therefore, to choose poverty is to choose moral impotence. It is to choose a state where your ethics are theoretical rather than applied. You are like a firefighter who refuses to pick up the hose because water is heavy. Pick up the hose. The weight is the point. The money is the water. Without it, you are just watching the world burn while holding a thoughts and prayers sign. 2. Money is a voting booth. Every Every dollar you spend is a vote for how you want the world to be. When you buy a cheap, toxic product, you vote for pollution and slavery. When you buy a book, you vote for education. The problem is, right now, the people with the most votes, billions of dollars, are voting for addiction, surveillance, and infinite consumption. They are shaping reality because they have the majority stake in the economy. When you desire 18 million a month, you are not asking for luxury. You are asking for voting shares. You are staging a hostile takeover of reality. You are saying, I want 18 million votes so I can override the votes of the idiots. If you stay poor, you are abstaining from the election. And when good men abstain, monsters win by default. It is your civic duty to accumulate enough capital to swing the election of culture. You want Aoxy 3 values to dominate. You need the budget to market them. Ideologies do not spread by magic. They spread by budget. 3. The vacuum of power. Nature abhors a vacuum. This applies to power hierarchies as well. If you, a conscious and intelligent creator, vacate the seat of power, wealth, because of shame, that seat does not remain empty. It is immediately filled by someone with less shame and less morals. It is filled by the scammer, the predator, the narcissist. By refusing to be rich, you are effectively handing the keys of the kingdom to the enemy. Think of money as a weapon. If you leave a loaded gun on the table because guns are violence, you haven't reduced violence. You've just ensured that the violent man will pick it up and use it against you. You must pick up the gun, the capital. You must secure it. Even if you never use it, you must deny it to the enemy. This is defensive accumulation. You get rich to prevent the bad guys from owning everything. Every million you make is a million that isn't funding a casino or a weapon factory. It is a million secured in the fortress of the sovereign. 4. Leverage and the geometry of impact. Let's discuss the physics of Archimedean leverage. Give me a lever long enough, and I shall move the world. Money is the lever. A poor man tries to move the world with his bare hands. He pushes and sweats and moves the rock 1 millimeter. He feels noble for his sweat. The rich man builds a lever, a system, a business, a foundation, and moves the rock 10 miles with a gentle push. Society praises the sweat. The architect praises the distance moved. Who actually helped the world more, the sweater or the mover? 18 million a month buys you a very long lever. It allows you to hire 50 people. That means you have 50 brains and 100 hands executing your vision 40 hours a week. You have effectively cloned yourself. You are no longer one human. You are a legion. To refuse this leverage is to choose to be small. It is vanity. You are saying, I want to do it all myself so I get the credit, instead of, I want the job done by any means necessary. V. The definition of good requires competence. True. Goodness is not harmlessness. A rabbit is harmless, but it is not good. It is just defenseless. True goodness is dangerous competence kept under control. To be a good force, you must first be a force. Money makes you a force. It amplifies your personality. If you are an idiot, money makes you a massive idiot. If you are a visionary, money makes you a global visionary. The shame you feel is the fear that you will become a massive idiot. This is a lack of self-trust. You don't trust your own character to withstand the amplification. Cure that. Build a character so rigid, so stoic, so Aoxy 3 that it can handle the voltage of 18 million without blowing a fuse. Do not avoid the voltage. Upgrade the wiring. You need to become the kind of monster that can eat the world, but chooses to feed it instead. That is the only goodness that matters. 6. The financial oxygen mask rule. You know the safety briefing on airplanes. Put on your own oxygen mask before assisting others. This is not selfishness. It is logic. If you pass out from lack of oxygen, money, you cannot help your child, your neighbor, or your audience. You become a dead weight that others have to carry. Poverty makes you a burden. When you are broke, you need help. You need loans. You need charity. You need social support. You are extracting energy from the grid. When you are rich, 18 million per month, you are a generator. You feed the grid. You employ others. You solve problems. You pay for the mistakes of others. To liquidate the shame, you must view your wealth as the oxygen that keeps you conscious enough to save the rest of the plane. You are not hoarding air. You are ensuring the pilot is awake. The final eradication of your shame requires you to zoom out to the scale of the species, where you must accept that evolution does not advance through the consensus of the average, but through the radical deviations of outliers who refuse to accept the limitations of the current era. The herd is designed for stability and stasis, programmed to maintain the status quo and ostracize anything that disrupts the equilibrium. But the species only survives because a few distinct organisms dare to mutate and demand more resources than their peers to fuel a leap into the unknown. unknown. Your desire for 18 million a month is not a defect of character, but a biological signal that you are attempting a functional mutation, trying to transition from a subsistence-level organism that merely consumes to a post-scarcity organism that engineers new realities. Capital in this context is not a reward for labor, but an evolutionary research and development budget, allowing you to run experiments that the tribe cannot afford, to test new forms of art, technology, and existence that require massive energy inputs to sustain. If everyone stays humble and restricts their resource intake to the bare minimum, humanity remains trapped in the mud forever, repeating the same cycles of poverty and struggle without end. So it is your genetic duty to hoard the fuel necessary to break the gravity of the past. The universe despises a vacuum, but it despises wasted potential even more. And the greatest sin in the sovereign code is to possess the engine of a titan while operating with the fuel gauge of a peasant, thereby aborting the future timelines that only you could have birthed. Every cure, every masterpiece, and every technological breakthrough in history was paid for by a surplus of resources that someone had the arrogance to accumulate, and by refusing to be that accumulator, you are effectively burning the library of the future before it is even built. You are building an ark of autonomy in a drowning world, a sovereign state of one where you dictate the laws of physics and economics, and you cannot build a watertight vessel with good intentions and spare change. You need the heavy steel of massive capital. The shame you feel is simply the friction of the air as you accelerate past the speed of sound, a temporary heat generated by breaking the barrier of the collective unconscious, and you must let it burn off as you ascend, because the view from the stratosphere is not for the timid. Your greed is a map, your ambition is a compass, and the 18 million is simply the wind required to keep a creature of your weight airborne. So stop apologizing for your wings and start flying.